Hey, Brown Beauties. Welcome to Well Honestly, the podcast, sponsored by Brown Women Wellness. I'm Andretta, a functional nutrition wellness coach.
And I'm Akila. We are your mother-daughter hosts, bringing two different generations together weekly to educate you on all things related to health, nutrition, financial, and mental wellness during these changing times.
Once we know what choices we have, we can do better because we know the struggle to stay healthy is real.
We invite you to come as you are, but leave inspired to become your best healthy self. So let's get started.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hola.
We are back for another episode of Well Honestly, the podcast.
Episode 44,
And we
to
will-
be exact.
And I'm so excited to be here. How about you, Keela?
I am here with bells on.
How you
Andretta.
got bells on,
A
girl?
little bit of...
Oh, okay. That was a bit much. Okay. So what is our show all about today?
Well, today we are talking about the biggest thing we can talk about as far as I'm concerned at the moment, and it's mental health.
Yes. Specifically how trauma affect our mental health.
Yeah, how trauma can affect your mental health, your wellness, and beyond. We're not gonna try to compact this episode. So this will be a kind of ongoing thing. I feel
Okay.
like it should be, just because there's a lot to unpack. And we don't want to make it, we're nobody's psychologist,
You want to
psychotherapist,
keep it sexy?
or anything. Keep it a little sexy, keep it a little fresh. We will also want to put our spin. Everything that we're saying here is basically things that we've learned over time personally, things that we have read from professionals, and hopefully one day we can get a professional in here so that they can,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely. I'm working on that.
so
In
that they can go
fact,
ahead and give us
in
the
fact,
tea.
a lot of this came from some of my professional colleagues. So,
Yeah.
uh,
So let's talk about it.
okay. So trauma.
Unresolved trauma.
You know what? And it is, most people don't realize what that they even have trauma. Let's start there. Because you got big traumas, you got little traumas, and they can have a huge impact on what's going on in your life if you don't stop and recognize what that trauma is. A lot of people stick their heads in the sand or they just go on and then they don't realize that it's affecting them in some sort of way. And honestly, trauma is one of the root causes of our hormones. So that is something that we find all the time in our world. So
Yeah.
we got to definitely address some of the thing. And I tell you something, trauma can impact your energy, your sleep, your mood, your metabolism, your reproductive system. Unresolved trauma show up in our relationships, how we communicate, how we handle our emotions. It's an underlying cause that'll make you sick and keep you from healing.
Yeah, trauma is a big deal. I think that I'm seeing more and more now lately people tapping into their traumas,
Mm-hmm.
realizing that they do actually have traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, unfortunately, I mean, it just kind of is what it is. But I think that people have made so many different missteps, and have taken some paths that they didn't want to be on, but now they're there, that's forced them to wake up. Also, 2020 and 2021 is a huge wake up call for a lot of people who didn't realize that their traumas, they may have realized that they had them, but they may not have realized that they're leading with their traumas.
And then it shows up at times like this.
Exactly.
I see trauma will show up at the times when you're in your weakest area. And here's another thing a lot of people don't know about trauma. It could be genetic.
Now, well, it's genetic, but it's also from what I'm reading, that is a bit more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Not
Not genetic is one thing, but the more impactful way that it's happening is through environmental.
Oh, well, that's called epigenetics.
Environmental
Yes.
environmental traumas. And this thing is deep. So let's start here with the first step in ever changing anything is to know.
So there are different levels of trauma.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you could you could accidentally bump your head on something and keep going and don't realize
That
that
you
you
have a
just have a
concussion.
trauma.
Yeah.
Not just concussion, but it could have. You know how people have little fender benders
Yeah.
accidents and they have in their cars.
Yeah.
And in fact, I have a situation right now. One of my relatives had a fender bender. Well, it wasn't a fender bender. It was pretty bad actually. And they had an accident, and the wife is pregnant, and they had the
Who is
accident.
this?
It's your cousin.
Okay, don't say
Okay,
nobody's name.
I'm not, but they are in pain right now. They were moving from one house to another, and they got sideswiped by a car, and it has really traumatized them because for the last 2 or 3 weeks they've been in a lot of pain, so they haven't been able to do the things and function in the way they want to. That is a form of trauma.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's impactful because it slowed them down.
Mhm.
Okay, um, and here's the thing about some of these traumas too, as well. Um, it can be we have what is called acute trauma, which is a one-time occurrence,
Mhm.
and then you have that chronic that recurs over time.
Mhm.
Okay, and of course they can overlap, and they
Mhm.
result in feelings you feel unsafe, alone, unloved, feel shame, grief, guilt, sadness. It's so many emotions that you go through.
A lot of those reoccurring traumas are coming from childhood issues. Um, and those tend to be the deepest, not negating the acute one-time traumas because those are quick, immediate, and powerful. But the things that we don't even realize how we were conditioned, whether it's good or bad. But we're talking about trauma right now, so we're talking about more of the negative side effects of childhood upbringings. It plays out and now as being adults, and it's the little things. It's not always these super, like,
Exactly.
heavy type. Now, those heavy things exist, so we're
Right.
not negating that. I
Right.
think that's pretty much like we know, right? But it's the little things like, I'm reading this book called The Mastery of Self by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.,
Mhm.
and he was talking about mastering of self means two things: learning how what you have been domesticated by,
Mhm.
and then learning how you've been attached.
Now, that to that point is how a person interprets and perceives the trauma too. See, some people can have that same thing event to happen to them, and they will interpret it differently from another person.
Correct.
And then they may perceive it different. And one person may recover it better than the other person. And it could be the same identical event. So some people can work through the trauma and carry on. Okay. But then there are others who cannot. So some people have it can make a very negative impact over time. But then you have those people, and I know somebody like this, they'll stick their head down in the sand. They
Mhm.
just simply refuse to acknowledge it, but they're still functioning. So you have functional people out here that have been traumatized, but they are still able to carry on and be successful.
There's
I
a
mean,
lot of people like that.
and that's a lot of
But
people.
the thing about what I'm saying with that, the attachment and domestication with that, is that it's not healing is not a easy process within any of that, right?
Mhm.
But to be a functioning person and know your traumas is to detach from those traumas and how they affect you in your everyday life. Prime example, he said in the book, which was so profound. As a little kid, he was always taught from his grandmother to finish all his food, whether he was full or not. You're not getting up from this table. Now, who all raising my hand like people can see
Yeah,
me? Who
yeah.
all experienced that?
I
Like,
did it in Catholic school. They
like
made me eat
they that,
pudding.
but you used to do that, and
Yes.
grandma used to do that.
Right.
Prime example, like, yeah, I'm full. No, you gonna finish it. These kids in
Exactly.
Africa, they ain't got no food. All
Right.
this kind of stuff that y'all used to say.
Waste.
Right, right.
Don't
We not
waste any
wasting nothing.
food. Correct.
However, he was like, the his natural instinct was I'm full. So
Right.
I'm done.
Right.
But then you have the domesticated part, which
Mm,
is the outside people telling you, oh no,
correct.
oh, no, 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 no. You're not full till I say you're full, right?
Right.
Then the attachment comes into where now you're triggered like, well, I have to finish everything
All the
because
time.
the world is
Correct.
going to come to an end. And then
Right.
as you grow up,
Yes.
you've already self-betrayed yourself because now you're conditioned to
Yes.
always
Always
finish your
finish your
food. So
food.
then what
Yeah.
happens is when you get older, you
Mhm.
start to overeat.
Mhm. Now
You
you're
start to
obese.
and now it just
Yeah.
becomes this whole
Right.
entire thing.
Right.
So that's what I mean by that small thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
noticing like, okay, boom, I was taught to always, always finish my food. So now that you know that,
Right.
you can work backwards and say, well, that was conditioning based upon whatever the case may be, my parents' level of thinking and understanding and all of that. But now that I'm an adult and I can take control of myself,
Mhm.
I don't have to do that anymore. And
Correct.
you just start to catch yourself.
Right.
But if you never thought and had the wherewithal, like, man, why am I always stuffing myself like this?
Correct. Correct. Correct.
And you don't relate it back to your childhood or relate it
And
back to
which
why you were taught that,
tr
because it's a taught, it's a taught
it's
moment.
absolutely.
Then
Absolutely.
it just becomes a cycle. So the first step is awareness.
Correct. Correct. And then you got those complex traumas, the
Mhm.
ones where you might have had a very frightful or a life-threatening event to happen in your life.
Mhm.
That does happen to people and that can really mess up a person's life, those kind of traumas. I feel for people like that. They've had um bad events to
Yeah.
happen to them,
Yeah.
and then they say and then you got what is called that historical trauma. And I think that's a historical trauma. Racism is a historical
Absolutely.
trauma, systematic
Absolutely.
discrimination, poverty, slavery, war. Those are historical traumas, and it could change a person, how they think. I was looking at the young men that go off to the army now. You know, yeah, think about this for a minute. They're only 18 years old and they send them off to fight.
Mhm.
18 and 19 years old.
Isn't that
And,
crazy?
and they're sending them off to fight for their country. And if you go back to the wars that we've had historically, let's look at the last war we had, which I think was Afghanistan.
Mhm.
And they're coming back into the country. They come back in here. Most of them that's a trauma. And
Mhm.
they have a hard time fitting back into society.
Because society is not allowing them to fit back in.
And then Imma tell you, in my generation, it was the Vietnam War, and the
Mhm.
casualties from I'm not talking about the deaths. The
Right.
casualties from the Vietnam War, I have an uncle, I have a cousin, I have a husband even, that all went to the Vietnam War, and they
Came back different.
and they came back different, and they're still trying to adapt. That's trauma.
Um, um, I never forget this. I was out one day and we were all minding our business, kikiing. We were outside on a stoop or something. And this guy walks by and he walks by, he looks and he stops. He looks, he keeps going. So we get back to kikiing because we all noticed it. Like, what was that? He circle backs around, he comes and he just stands in front of us. And he's just like standing, like dead face standing in front of us. And so we all pause and he's out of place for our group,
Mhm,
and so we're like, "You good? You straight? Like, what's going on?" But in that moment, and I'm so glad that I was around a few people that were aware, he just looked like he was about to snap.
mm,
And if we had caught him or said the wrong thing or whatever the case, it's just those type of things
mhm,
that can go left. So long story short, with that, he had just came back from some tour in some part of
mm,
some war, some mini war that we don't know nothing about. Basically,
mhm,
he had just
mhm,
came back and
mm,
he was having the hardest time adjusting, and
mhm,
he felt this was his first time outside,
mm,
and because he came back after, like, in the middle of the pandemic and all of this type of stuff, so
mm,
not only was it a new world for everybody else and him, he had just come back from, like, a tour, and it was somewhere, Iraq or something like that,
mhm,
so it was all this adjustment, all this craziness, and so
mhm,
he was just like, no one, I mean, you could see it in his eyes, like, he was just wasn't he was a shell.
mhm,
Right? So
mhm,
what would we do? We embraced him,
mhm.
turned up our music, gave him a
Mhm.
little something to drink,
Mhm. Mhm.
kiki with him a little bit, and he started to cry. And we
Mm.
were all like, "We got it," because he started to
Mm.
explain his whole thing.
Mm.
But
Mm.
what I'm saying all this to say is that that man was walking around all night with that
Mm.
trauma.
That's sad. And they took away a lot of the mental health facilities. I don't know if you
There
guys
are
remember,
none.
right? And they leave it up to the hospitals to deal with these with people who have mental health problems. And you know what the hospital's going to do? They're going to give you drugs.
Yeah,
And
and
so
send you on your way.
yeah, and that's not gonna help you,
No.
with your emotions. And so most people need to know how to control those emotions that come with trauma. I mean, because with that, what will happen with trauma is it'll show up in your skin. It'll show up in diseases that you could get, cancer. Trauma shows up in type 2 diabetes, weight gain, weight loss, headaches,
Because it's from
backaches.
stress.
I mean, and it's impactful. So, there's a lot of things that trauma can do. It's huge. And we're not going to cover all of the different types of trauma because there are different types of trauma. We will come back and we will go over, a few of the other ones when we come right back, but, I don't wanna it's I know this is not a sexy topic, but we need to deal with it.
Well, I think too, what we're going to talk about when we come back is not only, certain, well, we already talked about pretty much certain types of traumas and how it can show up, but I really want to talk about how, okay, we got trauma. Now what?
And we're gonna talk about triggers too. 'Cause see
That might be a whole nother episode,
yeah,
MJ.
because well, the trauma, you have it, but then there's a trigger. There may be a trigger that will bring that trauma on because remember you buried that trauma. And
Correct.
so now we got a trigger. And yes, and we're also going to talk about what we can do about it.
Triggers and how to deal
How
with
to
your
deal
emotions
with
with the
it.
trauma.
Yes, when we come right back. Are you tired of being tired? Are you aching, have pain in unexplained places? At the root of all diseases like diabetes and high blood pressure and many more is chronic inflammation. There are 10 wild-crafted organic hand-picked herbs in the Be Well anti-inflammation tea that will help calm those flames. Go to brownwomenwellness.com and get 15% off by putting in the code WellHonest15.
All right.
And we're back and we've talked about trauma.
Yes, and in an effort to keep this to not try to gloss over, because trauma is a pretty big deal
Mhm.
and it is a heavier topic.
Mhm.
But Brown Women Wellness, Well, honestly, the podcast is all about preventative or how to take care of yourself with what you
We
already are
want to get in
carrying.
other words, we want to give you solutions.
Personally speaking, in life,
Yes.
I'm all about a
Yes.
solution.
It's solutions.
And so, now that we know that there's not a soul alive
That
that
has
does
not
not have
right.
trauma.
Absolutely.
Everybody
Especially
has some type of trauma.
now. Right now, we're still in
Actually,
our
we are
10s.
walking traumatized
Yes.
individuals, whether we realize it or
We
not.
are. We're making out now. We're functioning
Some of
traumatized
us are
people.
functioning.
Yeah. I mean,
And some of us are, and I want to say this, some of us think that we're failing because we can't get back to how we used to think, how we used
mhm.
to operate and
Mhm.
all this type. We're beating ourselves up because we're tired all the time. We're beating up ourselves
Mhm.
up because, we're still in the house. Well, maybe we should be outside because everybody else is outside. We're beating ourselves up
Mhm.
because everything seems to be getting back to quote unquote normal, but you don't feel normal. Let me tell you something, grace. Because
Mhm.
contrary to what the world looks like, nothing is normal. Nothing is ever going to be the same. And there is a new world that we all have to adjust to.
And on that note, here's what we have to also deal with. There are we have triggers. So sometimes we don't even know what those triggers are. Have you ever noticed sometimes that you see people who go from one mood swing to the other in the middle of the same moment?
Yes.
And they're being triggered by something,
Mhm.
and those triggers, can be perceived as like side effects, because we there these little things that we think of might take us off and back off into that trauma era, into that trauma time.
Mhm.
And so we have to rewire our brains, and that's what really nobody teaches us how to do that.
Mhm.
We're not taught how to navigate our emotions. We have emotions, but no one says, "How do you navigate this
Come
emotion?"
on with the word,
Uh,
and you don't navigate it by burying it.
and nobody even teach you how to process the
Nope.
trauma,
It's
okay?
never been taught.
Yeah,
Hold on, let me go on one quick tangent.
okay.
It is amazing to me. I sat in these classrooms all my life. I had to fight. No, all my life, I sat in these classrooms to learn calculus,
Mhm,
to learn some BS, whatever else
mhm,
that they taught me that
that you
I
never
don't know.
use
I
in the
ain't
world.
never used that. I never was taught financial literacy for real. And
Correct.
I was never taught how to deal with my emotional well-being.
Right,
Two things that can save your life in this crazy world.
right.
So, with
Mhm.
that being said, take it from some old ladies, myself and
Mhm.
Andretta included,
Mhm.
that has seen a couple things in life that you do not have to let your emotions run your life.
And here's the thing, they teach us coping mechanisms. See,
Right.
that's what we're taught. We're
Right.
taught if you go to a psychiatrist or even a psychologist even, you're taught coping mechanisms.
Mhm.
Or they'll throw a pill at you and
Yeah.
tell you that, hey, chill out.
It's
Take,
anxiety. Yeah,
yeah,
but it's like, okay,
yeah.
well, where did that come
Yeah, but
from?
when that pill wears off, you still got that trauma and
Yeah.
you still got those triggers. And see, these things have been submerging all this time and it's coming to the surface now. 2021 brought a lot of things to the surface.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that wasn't there. And
They
so
call
I'm
it the reckoning.
and so yes, and everybody and everything is triggered. Okay?
And everybody has had their or is having their reckoning. Don't
Yes.
you let nobody's pretty well scaped Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever tell you otherwise. Okay,
Yes.
for you, there is no way possible how we spent a whole year inside fighting a airborne virus for
Yes.
you to come back out in 2021 talking about, yeah, so
Yeah.
this is how you can. No,
Yes.
honey.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
didn't feel it now, you're gonna feel it later. So deal with
Absolutely.
it now.
Absolutely. And so here are some things that you can do. That you can do. One of the things that we need to learn how to do is to really stop for a moment and breathe.
Mhm.
It is amazing what breathe. Most people do not breathe correctly. You'll be surprised how many people walking around holding their breath. Just a simple deep breath.
Let's take one.
Okay, and we're going to take one. And when we take one, we're going to let it in. We're going to let it out. Okay, so we're going to breathe in. Let me hear it. And let it go.
Let's do one more. I
One
like
more. We're
that.
going to breathe in.
And let it
And let it out through your
out.
nose. So you're going to breathe in through your mouth and let it out through your nose. This is what you want to do. You want to breathe. And
Just went straight to your brain.
that oxygen will slow you down.
Mhm.
Okay. Here's the other thing that you can do. You need to learn how to meditate. Now, I've had so many people tell me I can't sit still and think of nothing. I couldn't either. My brain is going 24/7 all the time. But it's a practice. Meditation is a practice. You have to practice it to get good at it. It's not going to happen the first time. It may not happen the second time, third time, because you're going to hear that chatter. But I'm gonna tell you something. That is once you master meditation, it is one of the most relaxing things you can do to your body. It slows down your pressure. Okay, your blood sugar. I mean, you will slow down, and it causes you to reflect. And so these are the things. Those are two things that you can do immediately, and don't
Uh,
cost you anything, by the
I
way.
think that when it comes to meditation, don't try to some people, and I used to be one of those people, they think that you have to be like this yogi, so you gotta
Right.
sit and you gotta, like, have the perfect scenario and the vibes and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a such thing as open meditation and walking meditation. So, like, right now, we're in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
I could zone out and
Mm-hmm.
meditate real quick.
Mm-hmm.
That is a form of meditation. So, all meditation is not what you see in the magazines and in the what they make it seem like. You
Mm-hmm.
can meditate is in your car. Some
Mhm.
people meditate, I being one, in my car before I
Mhm.
go into work or
Mhm.
before I go into my house, actually. Because you ever just want to sit,
Mhm.
like you just been doing a lot and you just
Mhm.
want to be, I just want to sit here.
And it calms down your
You're
nerves.
wanting to sit there because you
Mhm.
want to chill out, and that's a
Mhm.
form of meditation.
Mhm.
So I think that that's pretty awesome. I'm gonna say this. Another thing, like a 1A, 1B, 1C to that,
Mhm.
if you feel something, feel it.
Mhm.
You don't have to react. You
Mhm.
don't have to do anything.
Mhm.
Just feel it. We are
Mhm.
taught not to feel our emotions. Feel
Mhm.
that thing. If you
Mhm.
feel sad, feel it.
Mhm.
If you are angry, be angry.
Yes.
If you feel happy, stay
Yes.
in that pocket because guess what? It is a feeling
Mhm.
and an emotion.
And
It
it
will
I was just getting
pass.
ready to say that. It always
Every
passes.
emotion pass,
It
the happy
does.
ones and the bad ones.
Yes, it
You have
does.
to allow yourself because if you allow yourself to feel, what
Yes.
ends up happening is that you
Yes.
give yourself grace, you give
Yes.
others around you
Speak it.
grace,
Speak it.
and then
Speak
it
it.
doesn't become this big old to do because it's just a daggone emotion and a feeling.
Speak it, girl.
You don't have
Speak
to
it.
make it a thing.
and
Listen,
and that is the honest to God truth. I
yeah.
mean, we have to recognize it and we just have to be in the
I
moment.
used to be so scared of feelings.
Yeah.
And now, honey, I'll be calling out real quick. Ooh, I'm feeling
Yes,
away.
yes, I know.
I'll call it out real quick, like, I'm feeling some type of way about this. And if
Yes.
in that some type of way, we always say that, especially like the black community, that's like our thing. I feel some type of way. Well, name the way.
Yeah. And listen, don't be afraid to take a little things like CBD. to relax you.
Oh, honey.
Okay, don't be afraid of that. I mean, I know that, they took this off the market and now it's back on the market and
What, CBD?
CBD, I'm talking well, CBD and marijuana. Those are
They ain't
2.
never left.
Well, I'm just saying now it's
Oh, well,
legalized. And
yeah.
so now you can actually go and buy some or get some. Get that if you need it and
Yeah.
chill out, zone out.
Chill out.
Yeah, just zone
Find your
out.
chill pocket and
Yeah.
and 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 stay in that pocket
And
when you
trust
need it.
me, it's better than alcohol because
This is true now.
alcohol is a temporary fix, okay? And you feel bad afterwards.
And honestly, and I'm learning this, when you feel away, you don't need to be drinking away.
Exactly.
So, a glass of wine does relax.
Yeah.
Let's not have the whole bottle.
Uh, Thank you.
You know.
On television now, all they show, especially on the reality shows, every time you look on a reality show, all the women are drinking. Right now, drinking wine, wine heads, women, and wine. They have really promoted that to the core,
Yeah.
and everybody's drinking whole bottles, and now everybody want to make their own wine. Every time you look up, somebody got a new wine
I
coming
don't know
out.
nothing about that part,
I mean, they putting a slapping a label on a bottle of wine,
but
but
it's a slippery slope.
it is.
And as a person who has slid down those slopes many times, it only takes a few times to where you're like, "You know what? This alcohol actually the next day
Mhm,
is causing me to feel worse." I
mhm,
personally have suffered from alcohol anxiety.
mhm,
So the next day, my anxiety is through the roof,
mhm.
and then I go on these apology tours, and I'm apologizing for no
Okay.
reason, and,
Not the
all of this.
apology tour.
Yeah, because in my
Yeah.
mind is right back to the state that it was in.
Mhm.
The alcohol, it might have just exacerbated something, and
Sure.
then it's just a spiral down effect.
And
So,
it's part of the trauma.
yeah, so
Mhm.
by eliminating and making things worse and
Right.
just kind of focusing on what would make you feel better,
Correct.
it'll just save you so much headache.
1 drink is
Literally,
okay, but
and
it like you said, the whole bottle you don't want.
yeah, 1 or 2, and then let's just call it a day. And then drink some water, breathe, and shut up.
Okay, let's go let's go into our product swap of the week, which is our new feature. And we're going to continue on and talking about the unsaturated fats, the good fats, bad fats. And this particular SWAT is margarine versus butter.
All right now.
Okay. So, you know, we all grew up with margarine. I
Yeah.
mean, let's name them Country Crock,
Is I
Imperial.
can't believe it's
I
not
can't
butter
believe it's
margarine.
not butter. It's not nothing. It ain't even. Then you got Promise and
Oh,
Blue,
Blue
whatever that
Bonnet.
Blue Bonnet, and you go into the refrigerator. But luckily we don't see as much of that anymore. It is starting
Shoot.
to,
I'm seeing it in people's
well,
refrigerators, honey.
but the sales of margin are falling. Millions of people around the world still buying it now,
Did
and
y'all
it
know that margarine was plastic?
plastic and it's a processed junk food. Okay. So, and margarine is still, and it's derived, by the way, from the vegetable oils that we talked about last
Mhm,
week.
and it don't even
Okay.
taste like
It
nothing.
tastes like, and it comes from safflower, sunflower, soybean, cottonseed, and most of margarine is those crops are genetically modified organisms. GMO is what it's called. So, and the reason they do it is because they yield a higher produce for the people. It costs nothing to make, and
It's all about profit.
yeah, and so GMO crops, I'm sorry, are designed to be toxic and to the pests, and they are resistant to commercial weed killers like Roundup. So the farmer
Mm.
can simply spray the crops with weed killer and know that the crops will continue to grow while the weeds and the pests all die off. And that is what's in your body. So Roundup is in margarine. So the best thing to do is to look at something differently. How about butter or ghee? What is butter? Butter is a dairy product. It's made by churning milk, a process of separating the solid fats from the liquid known as the buttermilk. And so, although butter is also made from the milk of other mammals like sheep, goats, and buffalo, we're going to focus on cow's milk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, I'd rather butter than margarine.
And there and butter is there's so many different types of butter. You got salted, unsalted, grass fed, and let's talk about clarified butter. Okay. And this is the one I
The butter you
use.
dip your crab legs in,
Ah, no, it's clarified butter. It's
that's the butter that they dip the crab legs in.
is it?
Clarified butter. You took it, you put the butter in the thing, and then you take out the solids that
I
come
said
up to the
I
top.
don't eat crab, so I don't
Well,
know.
doesn't
Okay.
matter. The thing
Okay.
is, that ain't nothing but clarified butter, nothing but ghee.
So what that is when they churn milk or cream long enough, it separates into two components, and it separates the solid from the liquid, like you just
Mhm.
said. So butter is the butter fat, and then ghee takes that step, a process a little further, which means it's heated to the point where the manufacturers can remove any of the remaining water and caramelize milk solids, and what's left is called ghee.
I love ghee.
I love ghee. In East Asian and India, they've been cooking with ghee forever. Forever.
Forever.
It's their go-to. It has a nuttier taste,
It smells better to me too.
and it has a high smoke point. You can fry in ghee if you want to,
Yeah, you could.
and it won't burn like butter.
I like butter,
Yeah,
but I like butter for certain
so
uses.
do I.
And then I like ghee for certain. So you can't. Another takeaway. It's not a one size fit all.
Yeah.
Yeah, black people, we love to put a margin is the one size fit all for everything. Popcorn.
Yeah.
You gonna fry your steaks in
You gonna
it.
do
You gonna,
everything.
but
It's
it's
on it's on
like,
it's on your potato.
yeah, but it's like margin. There's no such thing as a one size fit all in food. So think about that. Why would you think that that could be the
Here's
thing?
the thing a lot of people don't think about. Every time they pick up those Oreo cookies and all those things, all these processed foods out here that y'all love to eat, that's margarine. They do that stuff with margarine. They don't use no real butter or no ghee in
Well,
those.
it's not a real food.
Yeah, so those foods that we enjoy so much are actually processed food, and it's made with that same margarine. So
Yeah.
whatever your choice is, though, remember to get grass fed, whatever it is. If you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna buy butter or ghee, get grass fed. I have my favorite ghee. I'm gonna put it in the link. It's a grass fed ghee, and it's called Fourth and Heart. I
Yes.
love that one. It's a little expensive, on the little expensive side. And Thrive Market, by the way, makes a good ghee too. You all have heard us talk about Thrive Market. I ran to somebody the other day who listened to our podcast and told us they were ordering from Thrive Market every week.
Good.
But
I
yeah,
love Thrive
they make
Market.
their own ghee, and it's a lot cheaper than the one I just mentioned.
Anything grass fed is gonna be a little bit more expensive, but I think it's worth the money in the long run
It is.
than it is thinking about it in the short run.
Absolutely.
Also, I will say this, like I said in last podcast episode, test out what we're saying.
Yes.
Go ahead and buy yourself some ghee. Go
Yes.
ahead and buy yourself some grass fed butter.
Right.
Just try it.
Right.
And then see how it tastes in comparison to if you are one of those people that are still using margarine or still
Or
using,
I can't
like,
believe it's butter.
all those other kind of like
Yeah.
BS butters and things, and
Yeah.
just test it out. And if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Man,
I mean, it's gonna be a difference of taste.
yes.
To me, it's better, but that's because you have to train your palate.
Let me tell you something.
So,
You walk open my refrigerator and you would see a big old tub of I can't believe it's butter.
yeah, I remember that.
I thought that was the end all be all. I said, man, I have conquered the answer to using butter or margarine
Bless your heart.
until I read the ingredients or realized what the ingredients were. And I said, I'm just down in
Because
chemicals.
there shouldn't be any, like,
It's all
ingredients.
chemicals,
Yeah.
So just be careful, people out there, and that's why every week we're going to have a product swap of the week so that you can start thinking about, these foods and swapping them out for something healthier, a healthier version of what you already eat. And we
Mhm.
know if you start there, just it's called those little steps. And we just
Mhm.
want you to take little steps towards your wellness.
Yep, we just planting the seeds.
So on that note, we're going to wrap this segment
All
up.
right. Well, listen, this was today's podcast,
Yes.
sponsored by us.
Yes.
Um, go out there, prosper. Listen, take care of yourself the best way you know how. Do something different for a change.
Breathe, people, and don't forget to
Breathe.
breathe.
Feel what you feel. Let it pass. Try some ghee and some grass-fed butter.
Yes. Yes.
And then let us know how you feel about it. Email us at info@brownwomenwellness.com.
Find us.
Find us on all social media platforms under Brown Women Wellness. We also are under Well Honestly the podcast on Instagram. And until next time.
And YouTube, don't forget to
Oh,
on.
and we're also on YouTube looking crazy. So
No, we don't look crazy.
I do. You still got on your get up.
Tuskegee. All
Anyway.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
Do you want to bulletproof your immune system to fight viruses during cold and flu season? A cup of Be Well immunity can keep the doctor away and keep that immune system at optimal levels. There are 8 well-crafted, organic, hand-picked herbs that will do just that. Go to brownwomenwellness.com and get 15% off your next purchase using code WellHonest15.